Welcome to the Chronicles of a Cheating Wife channel. A new story every day. Don't forget to subscribe. I love you, don't I? I catch my own words reverberating against the bare walls. Love. The word tastes bitter now, like iron in my mouth. My voice wavers, and I realize I'm standing in the middle of the living room, my fists clenched at my sides. The old family pictures line the mantel behind me. My arm around Megan's shoulders, the kids grinning at some carnival, all of us wearing those cheap matching t-shirts she insisted on buying. A few days ago, I thought I understood what love meant. Now I can't tell if I'm choking on the memory of it, or if I'm trying to spit it out for good. I stare into the silence, listening to the faint hum of the air conditioning. The whole house feels suffocating, yet empty. Part of me wants to smash every picture frame on the mantel, but I don't. I just stand there, silent, broken, as though if I move too suddenly, all this tension inside will snap, and I'll collapse. I open my mouth, but nothing comes out. I'm not sure what I want to say. Another "I love you" is stuck in my throat, or a scream of rage that never quite reaches the surface. The quiet weighs on me until I feel like I'm drowning in it. My mind is racing, skipping from one memory to the next, none of them making sense, everything in chaos. My phone buzzes on the coffee table, a text from work, probably. I ignore it. I can't think about anything but the footage I saw earlier, that humiliating, horrifying footage. Because it all started, in the strangest twist of fate, with a faulty home security camera feed. A glitch from our internet provider. Something that was supposed to be a silly inconvenience turned into a front-row seat to my own downfall. The day it happened, I was at the office, finishing up a meeting with my sales team. There'd been routine maintenance on our internet system at home, and we'd gotten one of those new cameras installed in the living room. An upgraded model that was supposed to sync with our account. Cutting-edge monitoring, the technician had said, proudly. It was part of a promotion. So why not? But something went wrong in the installation. Instead of connecting to our private feed, it linked to someone else's account, giving me a random camera channel. Except it wasn't random at all. The glitch must have crossed signal somewhere, because when I opened the app, I saw my own living room from a strange angle, like a hidden vantage point. Confused, I blinked at the screen. I recognized the couch, the rug, the corner where the kids' toys were piled up. And then I saw Megan step into the room, checking her phone. She looked over her shoulder, eyes darting around, obviously waiting for someone. My heart picked up pace. This is weird, I remember mumbling under my breath. I thought maybe the camera was delayed or stuck, or maybe I'd opened an old recording. Then a new figure entered the shot. A man I'd never seen before, wearing a dark gray work uniform and holding a small toolbox. Who the hell is that? I whispered to myself. An electrician. But we hadn't hired anyone since the renovations ended months ago. Or maybe a plumber. No, that didn't make sense. Then I noticed the way Megan looked at him. That slight tilt of her head. The conspiratorial smile. She said something, her lips moving rapidly. He set the box on the table, closed the blinds. She stepped closer. The tension in my chest grew, a suffocating knot, as I watched him slide his arm around her waist. He kissed her neck, and she tilted her head back, welcoming it. A cold sweat broke out across my forehead. No, I breathed. No, no, no. My coworkers were packing up around me, leaving for a coffee break, but I was rooted to my chair, eyes locked on my phone like it had been possessed by some demon. The feed flickered for a second. I thought it would cut out. But it didn't. He took her in his arms, right there on my living room couch, the one where I read bedtime stories to my kids. She leaned into him, lips parted, eyes half closed. I felt my stomach twist in on itself, like I'd been punched from the inside. My heart hammered so loud I could barely hear anything else. The image was almost surreal. My wife, in the middle of the day with a strange man. My mind shouted at me that there must be an explanation. Maybe it was an old friend. Maybe it was harmless. but the angle of their bodies, the familiarity of their gestures, the raw hunger in how they touched. It was impossible to ignore or to excuse. The camera was in the living room, but as they moved, it became evident that they were heading toward our bedroom. The phone feed jostled as if it lost connection for a moment, then stabilized again. Next, I saw them in the hallway. She pressed him against the wall, kissed him fiercely, then led him by the hand to the bedroom door. My breath caught, my pulse throbbing in my ears. I should have turned off my phone. Should have thrown it across the room. But some sick part of me needed to see it through. So I just watched, my mouth dry, my heart pounding like a war drum. I forced my gaze to remain on that screen as they stumbled into the bedroom, clothes dropping, hands everywhere. She was whispering things I couldn't make out through the glitchy audio, but I could see the expression on her face, intense, wanting. For him, this man in the uniform, this man who was not me. I don't remember leaving the office that day or driving home. My memory is blank in places, overshadowed by the relentless image of their bodies. I recall nearly sideswiping a parked car because my hands were shaking on the steering wheel. By the time I arrived home, hours had passed. She was calm, smiling at me in the kitchen like nothing happened, the smell of fresh dinner in the air, like any normal day. "How was your day?" she asked, spooning pasta onto plates. I just stared at her, my mind screaming, my mouth refusing to speak. Eventually I managed something like fine, which stuck in my throat. I wish I could say I confronted her that night. But I didn't. I sat at the table, ate, nodded at the kids. My appetite was gone, but I forced food down anyway, chewing mechanically. Megan chatted about errands, about what the kids did at school, about the neighbors. My eyes kept drifting to her phone on the counter, where earlier that day she must have typed texts to him, invited him over, or maybe he just showed up. The details were all swirling in my head, unstoppable. But I couldn't speak, couldn't question her, couldn't explode the fragile bubble of normalcy. Days passed. Every time I looked at her, the memory of that camera feed flickered in my mind like a twisted movie reel. She'd say, "I'm going to the store," or "I have a meeting," and my heart would seize with fear, rage, confusion. I told myself I needed proof. Real, physical proof, not just that single feed. Maybe it was a one-time mistake. A moment of stupidity. But then I found faint traces, a new brand of soap in the bathroom. A half-used bar with a scent I never recognized. Men's cologne lingering in the bedroom when I came home early one day. Small things that added up to something huge and soul-crushing. The camera glitch, ironically, was never fixed by the provider. They said the system had some cross-wiring error, but I could still open that app. And I did, again and again, though each time I prayed I'd see an empty room. Sometimes it was empty. Sometimes it wasn't. He came back. I watched him arrive around noon, let himself in with a key. Megan would greet him, always checking the windows, always alert, but not alert enough to catch that faulty camera. They'd talk in hushed voices, laugh, then eventually end up in the bedroom again. My stomach twisted every time I witnessed it, but I couldn't look away. I was punishing myself, maybe, or trying to confirm that this was real, that this was my life now. I got a DNA test for the kids, my darkest, most shameful impulse, because I couldn't handle the idea that they might not be mine. They were, both of them, unequivocally. When the results arrived, I stared at the words for a long time, my chest tight. Relief should have flooded me. Instead, it felt hollow, like part of me had gone numb. I loved them. I still love them. But something about that entire betrayal had severed a connection in me. I felt distant, a spectator in my own house, carrying on with my fatherly duties, but absent inside. At some point, I started using humor as a shield, a kind of black commentary to keep me from sinking too deep. Well, I thought, at least I don't have to worry about child support for some other man's kids. The thought was vile, but I forced a laugh that came out hollow. I looked at my reflection in the mirror and saw a man unraveling. My eyes had that haunted glaze, my cheeks sunken from sleepless nights. Every morning, I tried to fix my tie, check if my shirt was ironed, if my hair was neat. A corporate facade. Underneath, I was in free fall. One night, maybe 2 weeks in, I woke up in a cold sweat. Megan was asleep next to me. I watched the silhouette of her face in the moonlight. I still found her features beautiful in a sad, distorted way. My wife of over a decade. The mother of my children. The woman I used to hold close at night, trusting her more than anyone else in this world. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I whispered, "Why, Megan? Why would you do this?" She didn't stir. So I repeated it, a little louder. "Why?" My voice cracked. She remained still, lost in her dreams or nightmares. A wave of anger and heartbreak surged in me, but I swallowed it down like I'd been doing for days, weeks. My stoic shell felt like it was going to crack open. In the morning, as we made coffee and got the kids ready for school, I found myself behind her in the kitchen. I blurted, "We need to talk." She paused, looking over her shoulder. "About what?" Her expression was guarded, like she sensed something. I pressed my lips together. "I know." Those 2 words. Nothing else. She froze with the mug halfway to her lips. I watched her expression shift from surprise to something like fear, then a forced casualness. She turned around fully and asked, her voice tense, "Know what?" I said nothing. I just held her gaze, then took a deep breath. "Him," I managed. That was all. I walked out of the room, leaving her with wide eyes and parted lips, stuck in the middle of the kitchen. A few hours later, I got a text from her. "We should talk when you get home." She sent 3 more messages, all variations of the same theme, each more frantic. I didn't respond. I spent the rest of the workday drifting through tasks, barely aware of my surroundings, the ring on my finger suddenly heavier than ever. I caught myself staring at it during a meeting, twisting it around like a noose. I typed and deleted a dozen messages to her before giving up. When I finally came home, the kids were with her parents. Megan waited at the kitchen table. She'd lit a candle, as if that would set the tone for the conversation. I stood in the doorway, not bothering to take off my jacket, my keys still in my hand. She started talking, stammering excuses. "Look, this is complicated. Andrew, you haven't been around. I feel alone. We never talk anymore. He was there. And it was stupid, but I needed someone. It just happened. I'm so sorry." My mind drifted as she spoke, listening to the flow of words without really processing them. She kept going, voice trembling, tears gathering in the corners of her eyes. I stared at her and felt an odd flicker of pity. Or maybe pity was too strong a word. It was more like detachment. She kept explaining, justifying, weaving a story around her guilt, trying to salvage something. When she finally paused, I managed a single word. "Enough." She froze, mouth still open, tears now spilling. I repeated, "Enough." A shaky breath. "You don't have to just shut me out. Please, Andrew, this is fixable. We can." I gave a short, cold laugh. "Fixable." "I'm so sorry," she whispered again, voice cracking. "Sure," I said, and it came out as a bitter hiss. "Maybe sorry will fix it. Let's see if it works." I felt the corners of my mouth twitch in a grim smile, my black humor rising. Unstoppable. I marched to the living room, picked up the remote, and flicked on the TV to the input that connected to the camera feed. Her face went pale as she realized what I was doing. A few flickers, then the image of our empty living room filled the screen. I gave her a meaningful look. "Is it fixable?" I repeated, my tone dripping sarcasm. "We'll just keep waiting for Mr. Repairman to show up, yeah? And then you can say sorry again, and everything will be good as new." She covered her mouth with both hands, panic in her eyes. I didn't know you saw." I nodded slowly. "I saw. and I kept watching. She stumbled back a step. Oh God! I turned off the TV. The silence that followed was deafening. We both stood there, the swirling tension so thick it felt like it was crushing the air out of the room. Finally, I pointed to the hallway. Bedrooms that way. If you need to, you know, fix something. Or maybe the living room couch works better for you. She shook her head vehemently. Don't do that. Don't talk to me like some unfaithful wife. I finished, glaring at her. Or do you prefer a different term? Tears streamed down her face, and she tried to speak, but only a choking sound came out. It wasn't that I wanted to see her cry, but the anger in me refused to offer any kindness, any comfort. I'd spent too many nights awake, tortured by the images of her with him. I sank onto the couch, leaning forward, elbows on my knees, head bowed. My voice came out in a low monotone. I want to know one thing. Why? Was it me? Did I do something so wrong that you needed him? She wiped her cheeks with trembling fingers. It's not your fault. Not exactly. It's mine, Andrew. We got distant, and She took a ragged breath. He gave me attention. He came around when you were always busy, traveling, or working, or just gone even when you were here. I felt like you didn't see me anymore. I guess I see you now, I said softly. And I'll never unsee it. She knelt in front of me, reaching for my hand. I pulled back, and she pressed her palms together in a pleading gesture. Please, we can work on this. I'll do anything. I'll cut it off completely. I'll show you. Again, I gave a humorless laugh. Cut it off. A bit drastic, but if that's your plan, maybe I should watch you do that too. She closed her eyes, pained. Andrew, please stop. You're hurting me. I stared at her, baffled. My voice rose for the first time. I'm hurting you. I let out a harsh bark of laughter that veered too close to a sob. Of course. I forgot you're the victim here. Then I stood, walking away, because I couldn't bear to look at her any longer. In the following weeks, I didn't throw her out. I didn't scream about divorces or custody battles. I didn't break dishes or slam doors. I did nothing. I moved like a ghost through our house, performing the routines of fatherhood, of marriage, of day-to-day life, but with no real emotion behind my eyes. It was as if someone had switched me to autopilot. She tried to approach me, to reconcile. She left notes in my lunch, texted me heartfelt apologies. She offered counseling, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. I nodded. I said, maybe. And that was it. Then I'd go upstairs or lock myself in my home office, my soul feeling like a shriveled husk. The kids, oblivious in their innocence, carried on with school, with sports, with bedtime stories. I loved them. I truly did. But every time I tucked them in, read them a story, or kissed them goodnight, I felt a cold distance. The love was there, but it was overshadowed by my seething betrayal. Even though they were my blood, proven by the test results, my fatherly instincts were overshadowed by a numb disorientation. I'd see the bedroom door behind me and imagine her and the lover. My fists would clench, my heart would pound. But outwardly, I remained calm as ice. Eventually, after all the forced normalcy, it hit me that I couldn't live like this. That's when I laid it all out. I sat at the dining table while she stood across from me, trembling because she saw something in my eyes she hadn't seen before. Resignation. I need to be sure, I said. My voice had that eerie quietness to it, the same tone you might use to talk about the weather. So I did a test. The kids are mine. I paused, letting the statement hang in the air. She nodded, relief momentarily crossing her face. They are yours, Andrew. Of course. Yes. I drummed my fingertips against the table. So there's that. They're ours. But I can't stay here. With you. She let out a gasp. But what about them? About us? I forced a thin smile. There is no us. You destroyed it. Her lips parted, and she tried to speak, but no sound came. I stood up, walked to the kitchen drawer where we kept important papers. I pulled out a small stack. My passport, some documents, a few official forms. I tossed them onto the table in front of her. "You can keep the house," I said softly. "You can keep all our things, all our photos, everything that ties me to this place. Use it for the kids. Make sure they're safe. I'll pay support. I'll do what's right for them. But as for me, I'm done." She stepped closer, tears welling up again. "Andrew, we can fix." I shot her a cold glance. "No, we can't. I don't want to fix this. But I'll do anything. I'll..." "Stop." My voice was flat. "I've listened to your words before. I'm done listening." She looked at the stack of papers, the passport. Her eyes darted back to my face. "You're just leaving." I shrugged, a hollow feeling in my chest. "That's all there is to do now." A tear rolled down her cheek. "Where will you go?" I rubbed my temples, letting out a long breath. "Somewhere," I said. "Anywhere but here." Her hand reached out, hesitated in the air, as if wanting to touch me. I watched the gesture, unmoved. Then she withdrew it, tears falling freely now. The last vestiges of any illusions she had that I might stay were shattered. I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me, like crossing the threshold of pain to a numb acceptance. I tucked the passport in my jacket pocket and left the rest on the table. The mortgage papers, our marriage certificate, even my birth certificate. It was symbolic, as if I was discarding my old identity. All that I took with me was the one legal document I'd need to walk away. Outside, the wind was brisk. I got into my car, turned on the ignition. My breath came in short bursts. I sat there, hands on the steering wheel, feeling my heart pound. Then, in a single rush, it was like the dam broke. I slammed my hands against the wheel once, twice, letting out a strangled growl that turned into a choking laugh. The wave of black humor engulfed me. This was it. Everything had collapsed. And I was still alive, sitting in my car, about to drive away. The next few days blurred together. I found a place to stay, a small motel by the interstate, paid for a week in cash. Late at night, I'd wander to a bar on the corner, nurse a drink, stare at the amber liquid swirling in my glass. Sometimes I laughed under my breath at how quickly life can flip, how you can be one kind of person in the morning, and by nightfall you're someone else entirely. In those empty hours, I thought a lot about my kids. I wasn't abandoning them. I wanted them to have a home, stability. I planned to see them, to be in their lives. But not under that roof, not with her. Not after what she did. I could still see that camera feed in my mind. The living room couch, the hallway, the bedroom, her face as she welcomed him. In those midnight moments, I'd catch myself muttering darkly, "Well, at least she saved me the trouble of hiring a maintenance guy for the next decade. She's got one on call." Then I'd let out a sad chuckle that echoed in the lonely motel room. Eventually, I decided I couldn't keep drifting. So I took the DNA test results, the knowledge that my kids truly were mine, and used them as an anchor. I arranged to meet with Megan, some neutral ground, a diner near the highway, to discuss co-parenting. She arrived first, waiting nervously in a booth, eyes rimmed with red. When I approached, she stood up, as if wanting to hug me, or at least greet me. I offered no warmth. Instead, I sat down across from her, gave a curt nod. "How are you?" she asked timidly. "Alive," I answered. One word, again, because I had no interest in giving her more than that. She glanced down, biting her lip. "The kids miss you." I exhaled slowly. "I'll see them. Soon. We need to figure out a schedule." She nodded, rummaging in her purse for a tissue. "They ask where you went. I told them you had some business to handle." "Sure. Business." A waitress came over, took our orders. Megan only wanted coffee. I asked for a black coffee as well, ignoring the menu entirely. Once the waitress left, Megan began a flurry of words. How the kids have activities, how they got invited to a friend's birthday, how the older one needed braces eventually. She was explaining it all in detail, perhaps out of guilt, or maybe she just needed a semblance of normal conversation. I listened, arms folded. When she finished, I said, "I'll pay whatever they need. We can handle braces, birthday gifts, all of that." She nodded, swallowing hard. "Thank you." A pause hung between us. Then she ventured, "I ended it, you know, with him." A flicker of something dark moved through me. "Good for you," I said quietly, picking up my coffee. "That's what you should have done before letting him in my house." Her eyes brimmed with tears again. I sipped my coffee, unyielding. She tried to apologize again, tried to explain. I let her talk. I said nothing. My silent condemnation filled the booth. Finally, she gave a defeated nod, recognized I was beyond persuasion. We confirmed a schedule. I'd have the kids certain weekends, certain weekdays. We'd coordinate holidays. That was that. She looked like she wanted to keep talking, but my mind was made up. She would never be my wife again. Legally, we might still be bound, but emotionally I'd severed that tie the moment I walked out with only my passport. I left the diner without a backward glance. Megan tried calling me a few times afterward. I usually let it go to voicemail. She left messages, updates on the kids, trivialities about bills, sometimes pleas that we talk and fix our marriage. I never responded to the latter. The kids needed me. I'd always show up for them, but never for her. Meanwhile, a new sensation started stirring in me. A strange empowerment, like the sliver of raw nerve that remained was forging me into something harder, colder. I felt a sense of freedom, twisted as it might be. I realized that in losing everything, I had nothing left to lose. And that can be a powerful state of mind. One day, I stood outside my motel door, looking at the horizon. Cheap neon signs, the hum of traffic, an unremarkable stretch of highway. And I thought, so this is where I am now. I let out a rough laugh. The pieces of my old life lay behind me, shattered. But I was still breathing, still standing, and there was something unbreakable in that realization. I realized I needed to move forward, to build a new existence. The old house, the old memories. It was all behind me. I found a small one-bedroom apartment not far from my workplace. I signed the lease, used a fraction of my savings for a security deposit, and some basic furniture. A couch, a bed, a table, just enough to live. No pictures on the walls, no sentimental decor. I wanted a fresh start, a place that held no ghosts. Megan texted me the address of a counselor, recommended by a friend. She said if we both went, maybe we could salvage our relationship. I never replied. Instead, I spent my nights alone, reading or staring at the blank walls, letting the quiet wash over me like an anesthetic. Now that the initial wave of shock and rage had passed, what remained was a calm determination not to let her back into my life. Sometimes, though, the nightmares returned. I'd wake in a sweat. The image of her and that man burned into my eyelids. In those moments, I cursed them both. I wanted to lash out, to do something terrible. But I always ended up alone in my new apartment, breathing through the rage, telling myself, that was my old life. It can't hurt me if I don't let it. I needed the anger, though, to remind me to keep the door shut. Otherwise, the old me might have caved into her pleas, tried to mend what was irreparably destroyed. By day, I poured myself into my work. My sales team noticed a shift in me. I wasn't sure if they saw my increased focus or my underlying tension, but our numbers started to climb. My boss gave me a nod in the hallway. "Good job, Andrew. You're nailing those targets." I gave him a tight smile. He had no clue about the storm inside me, and that was fine. The kids came over for the first time one weekend. I took them to a diner, then to a park. We fed ducks, played on the swings. My daughter asked when I was coming home. I mustered a gentle tone. "I'm living somewhere else now, honey." She scrunched her face, confused. My son stared at me, fear creeping into his eyes. But why? Did we do something? My chest tightened. No, I said firmly. You did nothing wrong. I love you both so much. Sometimes grown-ups just need space. I'll always be here for you. It was the best explanation I could give. Tears threatened to show in my eyes, so I blinked them away, forced a reassuring smile. Come on, let's get ice cream. Their laughter at the ice cream shop was a balm on my wounded soul. I realized I could still be a father, still share moments of joy with them, even if my marriage had disintegrated. Megan texted me that night. How are they? Did they have fun? Thank you for spending time with them. I stared at the message, then turned off my phone. The kids were in bed in the cramped living room of my apartment, curled up on a blow-up mattress. They didn't seem to care that it wasn't fancy. They just wanted my presence. Days turned into weeks, weeks into a couple of months. Megan and I started the legal side of separation. We worked out finances. I'd support the kids, obviously, but the house would remain in her name. I didn't want any claim to it. The memory of that living room, that bedroom, was too tainted. I'd rather sign it all away. The only surprise was the lover, the uniformed man. He tried to reach out to me once, some twisted sense of guilt, perhaps. He found my number, texted me a short apology. I stared at the message. Man, I'm sorry for everything. I never meant to ruin your family. My hand trembled, and I felt a spike of fury. Then I laughed out loud in a sarcastic bark. Never meant to ruin your family. As if it was just a silly accident. I deleted his text without replying. A pivotal moment came after the paperwork was nearly done. Megan showed up at my office lobby unannounced. My secretary called me, sounding uncertain. Andrew, your wife is here to see you. For a moment, I froze at my desk, my heart pounding. Then I told her to let Megan come up. She entered my office, eyes scanning the room, taking in the blinds, the neat desk, the half-empty coffee cup. She looked fragile, like she might collapse at any moment. I leaned against the corner of my desk, crossing my arms, waiting. I'm sorry to barge in, she began softly. But you weren't answering my calls. We need to talk. I said nothing, just lifted my chin, urging her to continue. She took a shaky breath. I just wanted you to know I'm not fighting you on the separation. But Andrew, I still love you. I still think. A dull ache throbbed in my chest. Megan, don't. Please. I rubbed my forehead. We're beyond that. She nodded, tears brimming. I know you think that. I understand. But if there's even a small chance, I want to try. For us, for the kids. For a moment, the old me stirred, wanting to comfort her. But then the memory of that camera feed, that man's hands on her body, filled my mind again. And I shut down whatever flicker of empathy remained. No chance, I whispered. She let out a soft sob, then pressed her lips together, trying to regain composure. I accept that, but I'm here to ask, well, to beg, for just a little compassion. For the kids, I want them to see us at peace. I don't want them to feel your anger. Can we at least be civil? I closed my eyes. Yes, the kids deserve that. We can be civil, I said. We should be. That's it. A moment passed. She nodded. Her shoulders slumped, as though the last bit of hope had drained from her. Then she left, and I was alone, the faint scent of her perfume lingering in the air. I sank into my chair, letting out a long, ragged exhale. I felt hollowed out, but strangely resolute. That night, I sat in my apartment with a single lamp on, flipping through an old photo album I'd retrieved from the house. Our wedding pictures, me in a tux, her in a white gown, both of us looking so young and hopeful. Pictures of the kids, birthdays, vacations, lost teeth, and proud smiles. My eyes stung with tears I tried to hold back for too long. I reached the last pages, Older photos from before our marriage, back when I was finishing college. I saw myself smiling, bright-eyed, brimming with dreams. I barely recognized him, the man I used to be, so full of energy and optimism. I felt a lump in my throat. That Andrew was gone, replaced by a man who'd been cut open and left to bleed. But maybe, just maybe, I could heal and become someone new. Setting the album aside, I closed my eyes. Memories flooded me, but I didn't push them away. I let them come. My mother's face when she told me to follow my heart, my father's sporadic appearances, the humiliating knowledge of what had happened in my own house. Then, beneath it all, a quiet determination to reclaim my sense of self. Not the self I was with Megan, but the self I lost somewhere along the way. Time moved forward. The separation was finalized, and we filed for divorce. Our lawyers handled the details. Megan and I remained polite for the children's sake. No screaming matches, no big drama in front of them. The real fight had already played out behind the scenes, in my silent heartbreak and her tearful pleas. Occasionally, I had to see her when picking up or dropping off the kids. Each time, she looked at me with longing, regret. I greeted her with nods or curt words, channeling all my energy into making it easy for the kids. If she tried to talk about us, I'd shake my head and walk away. Slowly, she learned not to ask anymore. Meanwhile, I decided to keep the job I had, but the direction of my life changed. I joined a gym, started running again, the way I did in college. The hours of solitary exercise cleared my head. I found moments of peace in the steady rhythm of my feet hitting the treadmill. The sweat dripping, the pounding of my heartbeat. That was one corner of my life where I felt in control. I also upgraded my home security camera at the new apartment, partly out of caution, partly out of a strange sense of reclaiming control over a technology that had destroyed my marriage. I installed it correctly, double-checked the feed, making sure it was set to my account alone. No glitches this time. No illusions. One weekend, near the final stages of the divorce, I took the kids on a short trip to Lake Michigan. Standing by the shoreline, watching them skip stones over the water, I remembered simpler times, family picnics, the sense of belonging. A pang of sadness hit me, but it was gentler now, no longer the raw agony. My daughter grabbed my hand, pointing at a gull hovering above. My son challenged me to a stone-skipping contest. For a few hours, I smiled in earnest, letting their laughter wrap around me like a balm. That evening, once I'd dropped them off at Megan's place, I sat in my car outside the old house for a moment, staring at the windows. A silhouette passed by, likely Megan's. I wondered if she was lonely or if she'd found comfort in someone else. The thought barely stung anymore. I turned the ignition, pulling away from the curb with a sense of finality. The day the divorce was declared official, I found myself at a cafe, alone with a single coffee. No big celebration, no tears. Just a quiet realization that the chapter was closed. I returned to my apartment, took out the photo album again, flipping past the wedding pictures as quickly as possible, stopping at those older snapshots of me before her. I paused at one where I stood on a basketball court, sweaty, grinning, arms raised triumphantly. I smirked to myself, a ghost of that grin forming on my face. "I guess I'm back," I muttered under my breath. It felt oddly empowering to say it aloud. A wave of relief washed over me, mixed with a subdued sadness. She destroyed our marriage, betrayed me in the worst possible way. I'd been crushed, humiliated, left to pick up my shattered sense of self. But in the rubble, I found something else. A survivor's resilience. I was forging a new identity, stronger in its own way. I gazed at the battered old album, then gently closed it. My hand lingered on the cover. Despite everything, I wanted to keep those memories. Some of them were precious. But I also recognized that what lay ahead would be mine alone. New stories, new pictures, maybe no illusions this time. Weeks later, I was in my new place, some boxes still unpacked, the kids' drawings tacked on the fridge, a sign of their presence. Life was simpler, stripped down. I liked it that way, One evening, as I was sorting through a pile of old mail, my phone rang. It was Megan. She rarely called at that hour unless it involved the kids. Anxious, I picked up. "Everything okay?" "Andrew," she said. Her tone was subdued, a bit shaky. I'm outside." My mind raced. Outside my apartment. I walked to the window, peered out, and saw her standing near the entrance, arms wrapped around herself. It was cold that night. A swirl of complicated emotions rose in me. "Why?" I asked. "Short. Please," she said softly. 5 minutes. That's all I ask." Part of me wanted to slam the door in her face. But I sighed and said, "Fine." I walked downstairs and out the front entrance to find her there, hugging the coat around her shoulders, looking nervous. "Go ahead," I muttered, arms crossed. 5 minutes. She took a shaky breath. "The kids. They really want you at Mia's school play. She's one of the main characters, and I just thought we could go together, for her sake. It would mean a lot to her." I blinked. For a moment, I felt relief. I'd always show up for my daughter, but I wasn't sure if Megan was asking me to attend as a family unit or separately. "I was planning on going anyway," I said tersely. "I don't need you to invite me." She nodded. "I know. It's just," she asked if you'd sit with us. With me. During the performance. She swallowed, tears glistening. "She wants us both there, together. Not fighting." My chest tightened. The wound between Megan and me was still raw. But if my daughter wanted that, could I do it? I rubbed my forehead. "Look, I'll be there. But I won't pretend." "I won't. You don't have to pretend," Megan interrupted quietly. "We can just watch her. For Mia. Please." I let out a breath. "Fine." She nodded, stepping back, tears on her cheeks. "Thank you." Then she turned and left. I stood there, the cold wind brushing against my face. My mind drifted back to the day I discovered her betrayal, the countless nights of silent rage. Part of me wanted to snap at her, throw accusations again, but I'd done all that internally. There was nothing left but to move on, albeit painfully. Mia's school play came around the following week. I arrived at the auditorium, found Megan in the 3rd row, the seat next to her safe for me. I slipped in, gave her a curt nod. She offered a small, tentative smile. The lights dimmed, and the performance started, some adaptation of a children's fairy tale. Our daughter, playing a leading role, spotted us from the stage and beamed proudly. That moment hit me right in the chest. I forced the small, genuine smile and waved. During the play, Megan and I sat side by side, not touching, not speaking more than a few whispered words about the kids, but there was no hostility. Just two adults who once loved each other, now separated by a chasm of betrayal. When the show ended, Mia ran to us, her face lit up with excitement. I knelt, wrapped her in a hug, whispered, "I'm so proud of you." Megan joined the embrace, tears on her face. We stayed like that for a breath, a fleeting moment of unity for Mia's sake. Then, when it was done, I stood and stepped back. Megan locked eyes with me, gratitude and sorrow mingling there. I nodded briefly, turned away. That was enough contact. Enough to show Mia we both cared, but not enough to risk my fragile sense of self. Life went on. The divorce was final. The kids had a new routine, and I had my apartment, my job, my new habits. The camera glitch that started it all was now a story I could barely believe. How a random technological error revealed a betrayal so profound it shattered my entire world. But the best part, the part that saved me, was that it didn't end there. I found a piece of myself again, or maybe discovered a newer, stronger piece. When I looked in the mirror these days, I recognized someone who'd been forced to walk through hell and come out the other side. Not unscarred, but alive, aware, determined to live without illusions. One evening, after putting the kids to bed in my apartment, they took turns sleeping on the couch or the air mattress. bickering happily over whose turn it was to have which. I brewed a cup of tea, sat at the small dining table, and opened that old photo album one last time. I paused on an old snapshot of me, young, smiling, confident. Then I flipped to a shot where Megan and I were newly married, arms around each other, shining eyes full of hope. I studied it carefully, feeling no surge of bitterness this time, just a mild ache of regret. Then I turned the page, came to pictures of the kids as toddlers, beaming at the camera. My heart warmed despite everything. I realized I could keep the good memories without letting them chain me to the past. I could hold on to my love for my children, even as I left behind the betrayal that destroyed my marriage. The final photo in that album was one from a long time ago. Just me in the sunshine, around the same age I was in college, leaning on a friend's car, with the city skyline in the background. My eyes in that picture seemed alive with possibility. For the first time in a while, I felt a spark of that possibility resurface in my own chest. I closed the album gently, reminding myself, I am rebuilding. I am breathing. I am not the same man who discovered that feed, who froze in horror at the images of his wife with another. But I am still here, forging a future beyond the wreckage. I whispered, almost too softly to hear, I did love you, Megan. But now, I love myself more. And for the first time in months, I smiled, truly smiled, as the words settled in the quiet of my new home.